Have you ever experienced this moment when just when you thought you had something figured out, you have another epiphany and your view of life again entirely changes? Where when you choose to awaken spiritually in one way, another door ends up opening, leading to another lesson, another paradoxical alignment of events to bring you to an even deeper realization about yourself and life as a whole. Or have you ever been confronted by the understanding that when you choose to expand in a certain way, there is an equal and opposite effect in your life, wherein when there is some gain, there is some loss, and when you lose something, you gain something else. Where when you choose to attain balance, you end up exposing even deeper imbalance. Where when you choose to pursue your happiness, you end up seeing more misery around you and feeling the negative reciprocal effect of those positive outcomes you've already manifested. Or possibly that when you choose to expand your consciousness, you end up observing the decline in consciousness all around you. This is known as the mirror principle. This is where we can start to realize that reality truly is a paradox in nature. And I believe that the deepest we can get to the understanding of what awakening is through the understanding of the nature that is the paradox of reality. To understand a paradox, we have to think about this reciprocal effect of everything in existence. Just as Newton's third law of motion goes, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, so too is the nature of reality. Every time you experience some effect, some transmutation of energy, there is an equal and opposite reaction in your reality. As your consciousness ends up transmuting one element of the unconsciousness at play, another area opens up for reevaluation. As something ends up shifting, the opposite end of the spectrum also tilts, and you end up needing to balance the scales by continuously evolving to include even more notions of what is real in reality. Every time we pursue happiness, we end up finding the lack of happiness that lives within us. Every time we end up seeking something, we end up exposing something else that we are running away from. Whenever you choose to manifest something, you end up withdrawing your energy from something else in your life. Or anytime you make a particular choice, you're choosing to expend your energy differently, meaning that some other aspect of your life gradually begins to shift, leading to changes culminating in total transformation of your reality. When you choose to realize that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, you can start to realize that this is really the universal balancing spectrum playing out on a microcosmic level. How your reality is essentially just a mirror of the larger field of consciousness. That all of us as individuals are playing into this game of collective evolution by learning to understand what role we play as individuals in this mass energetic spectrum of consciousness. This also means that we are all players in a larger field of collective consciousness. Now, what is this larger collective field? In essence, if we are all players in one simulation of reality that is happening in this current time and space, we are all experiencing some sense of similarity within the matrix. First of all, we all chose to come here at this particular time. We're observing physical constructs in a fairly uniform way. We're all experiencing the changes in the energy that is happening on a mass level. For example, changes in the Schumann resonance, changes such as war emanating in the world. We are all also dealing with shifts in consciousness precipitated by changes in the human condition, such as when large groups of people begin to awaken. There are tangible shifts in the collective field. There can be differences playing out on the level of towns, cities, countries, or even global populations. When we choose to transpire changes on the individual level, there ultimately is some change that happens across the world. However, it's also important to understand that part of the paradoxical nature of reality is that when something shifts, something inversely is affected on the collective level. This is otherwise known as the butterfly effect. When you choose to change something individually, such as when there is a mass meditation and a lot of people get together to raise the frequency of the collective, arguably, the frequency of the collective in another aspect of the world can tangibly decrease. That every time we choose to elevate our frequency in some way, there is a decline in the consciousness at some other opposite pole of the collective. Now, don't be disheartened by this notion that for every positive effect, there is a negative counter effect. For there is still a great need to start to do more positive things in the world. Because of the negative implications of unconsciousness, of people not choosing to raise their frequency and to own their sovereignty as an individual, more and more people are plummeting into a state of victimization, where people don't actually believe that they have a choice or they have the ability to create positive shifts in consciousness because they don't realize their role as an individual in this collective mind. If you feel limited by your finite human nature, then what you're doing is constricting your awareness and keeping yourself small in this one divisible unit of consciousness. You're not seeing that you are actually irrevocably connected to everything else in existence. You're not seeing that as an energetic conduit of source, your role is to actually elevate your own frequency so as to support the awakening of the entire collective consciousness. How all of us really are like dominoes, choosing to enact mass change by beginning this movement of change within our own lives. When we start to realize what frequency we vibrate in, we can start to change all of the other variables around us, leading to more refined interactions with people in our lives, leading to improvements in our work life and in all aspects of our personal development, culminating in a whole new experience. Now, obviously, if everybody was to look at their life as one continuation of the collective mind, we would start to change this world rapidly by supporting our individual evolution. And any change that we make for ourselves as an individual ends up being in service to all others, as we are playing our part in supporting the state that we wish to see in the world. Now, it's important to think about why it is that the world currently is the way that it is. What we see playing out is mass duality. There's a lot of separation, a lot of conflict, a lot of people stuck in a condition of separateness because they do not see that there is an essential factor of oneness in the universe. Because everybody's stuck in their own reality of righteousness, it is very difficult for us to empathize with the conditions of those who are in their own realities. We may not be able to see that everybody is in some way right in their own way, and that the way that people perceive life is through the mirror of their own awareness. In order to empathize with another, we actually need to start to think like that other individual, to feel like them, and to connect our heart's consciousness to that other in order to have a shared experience of reality. Now, of course, it's intangible to be able to understand everyone and everything, but this is why the world is so divided these days. This is why empathy is diminishing even more rapidly, and narcissism is on the rise. Because people tend to be programmed to perceive their beliefs, their values, their standards as right and the opposing party is wrong, we are actually breeding more duality in the collective. We're leading to deeper separation and the inability to have tolerance for all those others in the world because we're simply stuck in our own notion of truth. However, truth in and of itself is another paradox, as there is no objective way to consider truth. Truth is simply what we, through our own mirror of awareness, hold to be true. It is what we want to be true. If what we choose to be true is something that benefits us, or if it's something that makes us feel our personal condition of happiness is elevated, then there will be an equal and opposite effect for somebody else. What you choose to see is right, desirable, and the way to go is exactly the opposite in somebody else's perspective. Which means that one of the very important truths that we need to assimilate is that everybody has their own version of truth, and that nobody's ever going to be able to understand your truth completely because your truth is emanated through the prism of your own awareness, through the prism of everything that you have once learned, understood, and believed to be true, which is purely your own interpretation of it. Thus, your job as an individual is to egoically bust through these conditions that make you feel that your truth is the only truth, to understand that everybody else is experiencing reality in one way that can be symbiotic in nature if we choose to walk the path of empathy. If we choose to see that unconditional love is actually a solution, albeit a more difficult one to implement because it requires stepping out of our egoic zone and learning to see through the heart's awareness of interconnection. So the journey of expanding spiritual awareness is essentially the path of achieving deeper integration. That means that this journey is all about you understanding where, along this spectrum of consciousness, you lie. Whether you're choosing one side over another, or you're choosing to exist in this and kind of consciousness. Whether you're choosing to see both sides, or just choosing to stay polarized. Whether you're choosing to react boldly and defensively, or if you're choosing to maintain neutrality and inner peace by seeing the truth in all that is. If you choose to see that your entire life lies on a continuum of alignment, you can see that every choice is either aligned with more peace, alignment, and harmony, or less of it. How when you choose one thing over another, there's always going to be a negative reciprocal effect that you will end up dealing with. For example, if you suppress any emotion, you end up dealing with the projection of that suppression in your life. If you run away from any aspect of yourself, you're going to be dealing with the judgment of that particular thing, either aimed at you or aimed at other people that you end up perceiving negatively in your life. If you end up seeking love, you're going to deal with the lack of love within yourself. If you end up idolizing anyone or anything, you end up feeling lesser than that particular entity. If you feel like you need more happiness, joy, and bliss, you end up feeling that nothing can bring you that state because you're seeing that you exist in an altered state of consciousness, which is keeping you small, weak, and victimized. If you seek abundance, money, and wealth, you're always going to feel that money escapes you, that your hunger for wealth places you in a position of greed and a lower state of consciousness caused by the constant search for that particular object of your desires. If you seek anything in your reality, something is going to be taken away, and you're constantly going to be feeling like there's a quest for more because you cannot find that search for oneness within yourself. As the great philosopher Alan Watts once said, wanting positive experiences is a negative experience, and accepting negative experiences is a positive experience. Understanding this may help us to unearth the deepest paradox of all, which is that when our mind assumes responsibility for even the most negative, confounding variables in our life, we are able to find the positive effect or the gift within all those negative circumstances. If we can understand that every negative is actually positioning us to be in deeper alignment to a positive outcome, we can start to perceive the beauty in all negative polarities in our reality. We can start to see that duality is actually gifting us the path back to non-duality. How negative conditions teach us the lesson of creating positive conditions within our own hearts. And that difficulty and pain is often teaching us how to pave the way back to bliss and true alignment, rather than keeping us victimized in that condition. Now, if we don't realize this paradox of reality, we're going to think that every negative must be reacted to in a negative way, which keeps us in this never-ending loophole of more negativity. We may end up chronic, perpetual pessimists and even nihilistic thinkers if we believe that everything negative happens to us to trap us in a condition of imprisonment or misalignment. Unless we choose to expose the cause of that misalignment deep within our own selves, we're always going to be attracting more of it. If we choose to not see that everything paradoxically is happening for our own betterment and personal growth, every negative is going to lead to more illusion. Meanwhile, every positive is going to escape us as we start feeling like the positives are actually the limiting factors in our reality. The reason why some people are chronically optimistic, meanwhile others are chronically pessimistic, is actually very simple to understand if we apply this paradoxical rule of reality. If you choose to exist in a despondent, disappointed, anxious, and avoidant mindset, you are going to be creating exactly that same reality, because that is the very reciprocal nature of your consciousness. If you choose, however, to see that inner alignment is entirely in your hands, and that bliss, joy, happiness, and health is going to be the outcome of you choosing to create that condition within yourself, you can choose to break this paradox of attracting what you don't want to have in your life by fearing that condition manifesting. By choosing to see that you actually experiencing the state of consciousness that you want to be in before the cause for that state arises in your life, you can be the creator of your reality, breaking this need to constantly battle what is by understanding that you are what you end up manifesting. Now let's apply this to a more mass level to expand our consciousness further. If we right now are facing the opportunity to either conform to a condition of duality playing out in the collective consciousness, or to produce our own positive given what is, it is entirely our own decision whether or not we want to play into the mass program of unconsciousness and destruction, or the mass program of liberation and bliss. Whether we want to ascend into a higher dimensional realm of awareness, which is akin to 5D consciousness and this new earth paradigm, which many people are already experiencing just by realizing that they are sovereign entities and are their soul in physical form, as opposed to feeling like they are imprisoned in this matrix. If you fear being conditioned, programmed, or enslaved by anybody outside of you, you end up creating paradoxically exactly what you are fearing, as you are really just enslaving yourself. These programs all around you are mostly illusory in nature. What you end up thinking may attack you, you end up creating by attacking yourself and forcing yourself into that illusion of conformity. If you feel that something has to be the way that you think it is, you end up creating exactly that construct within your own mind. Because your ego is the maker of this paradox. Your ego ends up manifesting the condition that whatever it is that you believe in is what you end up becoming. So you in essence are creating your identity and moving away from a fluid model of non-duality of your soul's nature by choosing to stay stuck in any one prism of your own consciousness. The other paradox we can say then that we experience is that movement away from the mental box of duality ends up reciprocating the soul's state of true freedom. That if we want to be experiencing total bliss, total freedom, total ability to be and to express our authentic palette of consciousness, all the beautiful colors which are all frequencies on this spectrum of higher awareness, we have to first unlock our mental box and free ourselves from the prison of our own minds. Choosing to recognize the imprisonment that we ourselves are creating ends up leading to the liberation to a higher reality of non-duality. And all of these conditions that we are now experiencing on planet Earth are allowing all of us to experience this essential choice of our experience. Are we going to choose to be subordinates in this world of imprisonment, or are we going to choose to thrive in spite of all of it? If we choose to see the Matrix as a trap, it will be as such. If we choose to see this as a test for our ability to soulfully align with a higher condition of peace, we will be experiencing that higher reality and even coexisting with those that don't realize that as an option in their own field of awareness. You can choose to be experiencing an entirely different reality from your neighbor, your friends, your loved ones, or even your past version of yourself by choosing to understand that if you change any assumption about reality, reality immediately shifts. If you choose to see new possibilities, those new possibilities will enter the periphery of your field. If you acknowledge them without fear, they will become a tangible aspect of your experience. However, as soon as resistance comes in the way, or you choose to conditionally create any reality out of a desire to fake this world for yourself, to make a shortcut in order to come into deeper alignment with something externally to you, you'll start to realize that paradoxically, you're only lying to yourself. That choosing to fabricate any happiness, success, love, or alignment outside of you just means fooling yourself and choosing to cheat the game of life that you play with yourself in this lower dimensional realm. You are a soul that has chosen to come here to experience all of these conditions, the variables of your past, the situations of your present, the reality that the collective consciousness is going through, and all of the other elements in your life that will end up creating your future unless you choose to create the creative interference that will change the reality that you're bound to experience. If you choose to change anything about the way that you perceive reality in the now, your future will immediately shift. And so this is the paradox that is entirely up to you. If you choose to create a change, immediately something else will shift in your life. By choosing to peer to the darkness of your own mind, you're choosing to transmute some of that collective unconsciousness. By choosing to move into the darkness, you're also venturing into the light aspect of your being. By transmuting any personal lower frequency emotion, you're subsequently creating more space for a positive frequency reality to dawn within your field of awareness. By choosing to detach from one lower worldly materialistic obstacle, you're choosing to contain a new aspect of your higher dimensional self in this physical realm. By choosing to transmute the fearful aspects of your ego, you're choosing to see that your soul is always thanking you on the other side, allowing you to see that what your ego fears most is what your soul loves most for your experience expansion.